All right, now we're going to start video lesson 2 on the axial skeleton. And today we're going to focus on the skull and all of the bones and some of the features that you're going to find in the skull. So what are we waiting for? Let's go ahead and get started. All right, continuing on with lesson 2 on the axial skeleton. There are 80 bones in the central or axial skeleton that make up the skull, the vertebral column, which includes the sacrum, and which is down here at the base as kind of part of your pelvic girdle there. It also includes the ribs and the sternum. The skull protects and supports the brain and special sense organs, your eyes and your ears and your nose, your sense of smell. Besides forming the large cranial cavity, the skull also forms several smaller cavities, such as the nasal cavity, your orbits or your eye socket, the paranasal sinuses, and small cavities which house organs involved in hearing and equilibrium. So there's very small cavities for your inner ear. The bones of the skull are grouped into 2 categories. There are the cranial bones, they make the brain case, and your facial bones, and that's pretty self-explanatory. They make up your face. There are 8 cranial bones. You can see there the list of all the cranial bones. 2 of them are paired, meaning that you have 2 of them. The frontal bone, the occipital bone, the sphenoid, and the ethmoid bone are all singular. The parietal bone, there are 2, your right and left parietal bones, and the temporal bones, your right and left temporal bones, and that's a grand total of 8. There are 14 in your face. The mandible and the vomer are the only one in your face that are not paired bones. All of the others are paired, such as the maxilla, the zygomatic bone, the nasal bones, the lacrimal bones, the palatine bones, and the inferior nasal conchae are all paired facial bones. Your brain case, also known as the neurocranium, has the 8 bones. The frontal is single. The occipital, not shown because it's the very back of your skull. You can see it on the side or the posterior view. The ethmoid, which is in the back of your eye socket. You can see it kind of colored in a red right back. There is the ethmoid. And the sphenoid bone. Sphenoid is back here in the back of your eye socket, and you can see it actually comes back, and there's a piece of it back there. And the paired temporal and parietal bones. So temporal are the purple ones right here, and the parietal make up the side of your head here and again over here. And those are, as mentioned earlier, your paired bones of the brain case. And here we see it from the side. So again, the sphenoid, not only is it back in here, the back of your eye socket, but it's also back here, again behind your eyeball on the lateral edge of your skull there. So your forehead is your frontal bone. The parietal bone, this is paired. You got one just like it over on the other side. Same with the temporal bone. The temporal bone includes your external auditory meatus for your ear canal. And then here's your occipital bone in the back. And that is the single bone that is back there at the very posterior and inferior portion of your brain case, your skull. A suture is an immovable joint. And we find them between the 2 bones of the skull. And these bones, as the name would suggest, form what is called an immovable joint. And once this joint is formed, after you are born, these bones they don't really articulate with each other. They don't move, as the name would suggest. Again, they are immovable. They are locked in place. But when you are born, the fetal skull has what are called fontanelles, which are You may, if you've ever held a newborn baby, you may have seen its soft spot. And the last part to close is right up here, the soft spot up on top of the baby's head. And the reason that a baby is born without the bones of the skull forming is so that when we as human beings are born with very large heads, we have a large brain. And because of that, childbirth has become that, coupled with walking upright and the large heads that are holding our large brains when we were born, makes childbirth very difficult for women. And to help with that, these bones, Mother Nature has decided to make these bones not yet fully formed, so that as baby's head is being squeezed through the birth canal, these bones can shift and move and actually allow the baby's head to conform a little bit to being pushed through that birth canal. And then after the baby is born, then these bones will grow together and form the sutures, which are those immovable joints. But until that point, that's basically cartilage in between there. And that's what makes the baby's soft spot and why the baby has it. Bones of the skull, we have the sphenoid bone. This is what is sometimes referred to as the bat-shaped. It kind of looks like the winged mammal known as a bat. And so if you use your imagination, here's its head and its eyes. There, the bat's looking at us, big ears, and then, of course, the bat wings that spread out and give it that descriptive shape. It is at the back. You can see here the smooth, flat portion. This is part of the back of the orbit or eye socket right there. And then you can see it extends back and it goes back behind. And this is that bone that then is behind the eye socket on the side and right in front of the temporal bone. So you can, if pointing it out, you can point to it from inside the eye socket, or you can go from the side, the lateral view, and point to it there. There are 14 facial bones. Again, the mandible and the vomer are the only unpaired. There is actually, believe it or not, the maxillae. There are paired. There's a seam right in between, right in the front of your upper jaw. But anyway, the mandible is the lower jaw. The maxillae is what would make the upper jaw, and the bottom part of your face there that holds your upper teeth. The vomer is inside the nasal cavity. The nasal bones are up here making the bridge of your nose, behind all that cartilage that would make the point of your nose. The zygomatic bones are your cheekbones. The lacrimal are right here in the corner of the eye, and they're called the lacrimal bones because they contain what is called the lacrimal apparatus, which is a network of tubes that drain tears out of your eyes into your nasal cavity. The palatine bones are at the very back of the roof of your mouth. And then the inferior nasal conchae, they are also in the nasal cavity. So here we can see a different view. The vomer is right here in the middle. You have your inferior nasal conchae right there. The lacrimal is going to be that little purple one right there. And that, again, has the tube that will drain tears from your eyes into your nasal cavity. Mandible here, one bone, makes your lower jaw. Maxilla is fused. There's actually two bones there. Sometimes babies are born with what they call a cleft palate, and that is where there's a seam where those bones did not form together. Zygomatic makes the cheek. That's this guy right there. And the nasal bone, again, there's paired bones right there that make the bridge of your nose. So here we see a cutaway. We've made a mid-sagittal cut, and we can now see on the inside of the brain case when you see some of the bones that are in there. So your inferior nasal concha, again, right there in the middle of the nose. You can see the palatine bone right here at the very back of the roof of the mouth. There, gave me that bonus line there. I don't know why it does that. And those are some of the bones that we couldn't see in the first view. Besides protecting the brain, the skull provides a framework for attachment of muscles that move various parts of the head, attachment for muscles that produce facial expressions. You know, that old saying, it takes so many muscles to smile and so many muscles to frown and blah, blah, blah. Attachment for muscles that produce facial expression. The facial bones form the framework of the face and provide support for the entrances to the digestive and respiratory system. Of course, we eat and breathe through our face. And that is going to do it for lesson 2 on the bones of the skull. All right, that's all I got for the skull. So, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you later.